Imagine fighting a brutal, bloody war for 10 agonizing years, only to survive, turn your eyes towards home, and realize the universe itself is trying to erase you from existence. This isn't just a fantasy story, this is the ultimate test of human endurance. And Christopher Nolan just staked his entire legacy and a staggering $250 million to bring it to life.
Help me go home.
But the unthinkable just happened. A preview by the most bulletproof filmmaker in modern cinema didn't just underperform. It triggered a historic wave of public rejection. We are looking at nearly 500,000 dislikes, a staggering 80% of viewers outright turning their backs on a Christopher Nolan film. Let that sink in. This is a creator whose name alone routinely prints cash, yet the moment he touched the foundation of Western storytelling, the audience didn't just push back. They revolted so aggressively that YouTube scrambled to mask the metric entirely to protect the studio. Tonight, we are stripping back the layers of exactly how this production earned that reaction, and looking past the entire internet outrage to ask the ultimate question. Is the Odyssey actually doomed, or is it bound to be much, much better than expected? Now, let's look at the wreckage. Let's look at the raw data, because the numbers don't lie. This preview struggled to pull 65,000 positive marks against an absolute avalanche of rejection. Historically, that kind of toxic, lopsided ratio is reserved exclusively for doomed studio disasters like Disney's Snow White's remake. To see Nolan's name anywhere near that conversation should have executives in a total state of panic. This isn't a vocal minority of internet trolls. When a trailer this massive gets ratioed into oblivion, it means the everyday moviegoers, the core fans who normally show up without question, took one look at this footage and physically recoiled. So what did they see that destroyed a decade of absolute creative trust in less than 3 minutes? The data tracks the exact split second the tide turned. The footage was performing beautifully until the cast list hit the screen. The moment the audience saw how those legendary figures were actually being brought to life, the negative reaction shattered the charts. Inside an hour, the pushback doubled. This isn't a coordinated bot attack. This is a collective, mainstream nerve being struck in real time. To understand how we got here, we have to look at the overall synopsis, the source material, the controversial casting, and the sheer chaos of the production. To understand why this movie is such a massive gamble, we have to look at what Nolan is actually changing from the original text. Because the Odyssey isn't a war story. It's a post-war survival story. Homer's epic poem picks up long after the smoke clears. It's a psychological aftermath narrative. Odysseus spends 10 agonizing years lost at sea, cursed by Poseidon, while his wife Penelope and son Telemachus are trapped at home, watching their palace get slowly picked apart by ruthless suitor. But this is Christopher Nolan. He demands a grand, visceral opening. To do that, he isn't starting on a lonely island. He is diving straight into the classical accounts of the fall of Troy. He has decided to show us the full brutality of the city's final night, the horror that created the monster. Universal has been heavily pushing the fact that Nolan built a full-size Trojan horse to scale. No green screens, no digital armies, just thousands of actual extras on a massive set, capturing the absolute chaos of the sack of Troy. By heavily incorporating the war itself, Nolan is pulling a fascinating narrative trick. In the original poem, the war is a distant memory. In this movie, the war is a scar the audience is going to watch happen in real time. It means we will ultimately understand why Odysseus is so desperate to get back to his family, because we just watched him endure 10 years of hell before he even steps foot on a boat. Nolan isn't just adapting the Odyssey, he's building a definitive cinematic canvas for the entire mythos. But expanding the scope like this introduces a massive danger. How do you pack a 10-year war and a 10-year journey home into a 3-hour runtime movie without it feeling incredibly rushed? And that brings us to the epicenter of the online wildfire, the cast list. This is where the trailer didn't just lose the audience, it completely severed their immersion. When you're adapting a text this sacred, your actors cannot feel like a collection of modern Hollywood stars playing dress-up. And the primary target for this internet's fury? Matt Damon as Odysseus. The backlash here is precise and lethal. Audiences are conditioned to the gold standard of mythic kings, the booming classical gravitas of Sean Bean and Troy. But the second Matt Damon opens his mouth, the illusion shatters. He doesn't sound like a legendary Bronze King ruler, he sounds like a guy from Boston. The internet is terrified that his modern dad-next-door aura turns a mythic king into Jason Bourne on a rowboat. Right behind him, the internet slammed the casting of Tom Holland and Zendaya as uninspired Marvel-grade typecasting. Fans wanted a dark, fractured prince like Barry Keoghan for Telemachus, not an anxious boy hero. But this is where the internet's knee-jerk reaction misses Nolan's vision. In the myth, Telemachus isn't a hardened warrior. He's an isolated, overwhelmed 20-year-old kid. By matching Holland's vulnerability against Robert Pattinson, who plays the arrogant, predatory suitor Antinous, Nolan is setting up a genuinely terrifying, high-stakes, coming-of-age story. And with Zendaya's Athena acting as a cold, strategic force of nature rather than a CGI trope, Odysseus won't just be fighting monsters, he'll be a pawn in the brutal game of divine chess. But the absolute boiling point of this entire controversy is centered on Lupita Nyong'o. The comment section went absolutely ballistic over a black woman being cast as Helen of Troy, flooding social media with furious arguments about historical accuracy. But Nolan completely bypassed the cultural war noise with this brilliant narrative trick. Nyong'o isn't just playing Helen, she is pulling double duty, playing both Helen and her twin sister, Clytemnestra. In Greek myth, these two are polar opposites. Helen is the queen men fought a war for. Clytemnestra is the bitter wife who murders her husband the second he gets home from that war. Her tragic storyline serves as a dark, psychological warning to Odysseus about what happens when a king stays away too long, making her the perfect thematic mirror to Anne Hathaway's loyal Penelope. By using the exact same actress to embody the spark that started the war and the trauma left in its wake, Nolan completely subverts the backlash. He transforms the surface-level internet race debate into a masterclass of high-concept storytelling. What the trailer ultimately reveals is a total Nolanization of Greek mythology. If you're expecting a shiny, over-stylized CGI wonderland, you don't know Christopher Nolan. He is treating the Odyssey not as a whimsical fantasy, but as a gritty, punishing, Bronze Age survival story. Look no further than the glimpse we get of the Cyclops, Polyphemus. Instead of taking the easy way out with green screens, Nolan built a massive, fully functional, practical animatronic. He brought in physical performer Bill Irwin to bring the giant to life, right there on set. When Matt Damon is staring up in terror at a one-eyed monster, he isn't looking at a tennis ball on a stick. He is looking at something real, tangible, and terrifying. That dedication to scale is why The Odyssey is officially the first feature film in history to be shot 100% on IMAX film. To match that unprecedented visual scale, Nolan has reunited with composer Ludwig Göransson, fresh off their massive Academy Award-winning collaboration on Oppenheimer. Göransson's signature sonic boundaries are all over this footage. The score isn't traditional Hollywood brass. It's a massive, haunting, deeply primal soundtrack designed to shake the theater walls. With the film finally hitting theaters on July 17th, the internet remains completely fractured. On one side, you have the skeptics. Critics are generally worried that the dialogue will lean too modern, and that the star-studded cast will feel more like an Avengers-style assembly of famous faces than an authentic immersion period piece. But on the other side, you have the believers. Visual purists point out that the practical scale of the movie looks entirely unprecedented. More importantly, focusing heavily on the emotional toll of Penelope and Telemachus waiting at home gives this ancient myth a ticking clock intensity that echoes Dunkirk. Whether you love the casting or hate it, Christopher Nolan has built a $250 million R-rated mythic epic that demands to be seen on the biggest screen possible. At a time when Hollywood routinely plays it safe, this is exactly the kind of massive, uncompromising risk cinema needs. Nolan isn't trying to build another standard summer blockbuster. He's attempting to capture the very soul of Western literature's oldest survival story. Because of that, I generally believe that this movie is going to be far better than expected. Once the initial shock of the modern casting wears off, audiences are going to be completely blindsided by the sheer, practical gravity of the world Nolan has built. When the lights go down, the internet's knee-jerk panic is going to transform into a massive, pleasant surprise. So, I'm throwing it over to you. Is this star-studded cast going to completely distract from the ancient myth? Or is Nolan about to deliver another absolute masterpiece that sweeps the Oscars all over again? Drop your theories, your hot takes, and your opening weekend predictions in the comment section down below. If you want to stay ahead of the curve and catch my full spoiler-free review the second it drops, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and remember, turn off your damn phone and just watch the movie.